My beloved child, pause for just a moment, because the message you are about to hear is centered on one person your heart may already recognize, the soulmate whose presence has never felt completely ordinary. There is something about this connection that has remained unfinished, something that keeps pulling your thoughts back to them even when you try to focus on everything else. And perhaps the strangest part is this. Your soulmate may not be trying to come into your life in the way you expected. They may be trying to protect something far more precious, the connection between you. Imagine receiving a message from the one person you thought had forgotten you, only to discover that they have been quietly watching, thinking, remembering, and trying to find the right moment to reach you. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn, because the thing they want you to understand is not simply, "Come back to me." It is something much deeper. They want you to stop moving toward a version of your life that no longer feels like you. They want you to notice what your heart has been trying to tell you. And before you assume this is about chasing them, wait, because your soulmate is not asking you to run after them. They are trying to make you realize why the distance between you may have happened in the first place. There is a hidden piece of this connection that you have not seen yet, and once you understand it, several moments from your past may suddenly look completely different. Somewhere beneath the silence, your soulmate has been carrying a thought they never knew how to express. They may have rehearsed conversations in their mind, imagined what they would say if you were standing directly in front of them, and then allowed another day to pass without saying anything. But silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes it means someone is trying to understand feelings that have become too significant to treat casually. Your soulmate may have realized that something about the old pattern between you cannot continue. The same misunderstandings, the same hesitation, the same almost moments, the same feeling that one person is waiting while the other is searching for certainty. Something has to change. And here is the revelation you may not have expected: the person you believe needs to be rescued from uncertainty may actually be the person trying to rescue the connection from being lost to it. They are beginning to understand that love cannot survive on assumptions alone. It needs honesty. It needs courage. It needs two people willing to stop pretending that nothing matters. That realization may be why their energy feels different lately, why certain memories suddenly return, why an old song, a familiar place, or a simple thought can bring their face into your mind without warning. Do not dismiss those memories as meaningless. In this story, they represent the emotional thread that has remained uncut. And the closer your soulmate comes to admitting what they truly feel, the more impossible it becomes for them to continue hiding behind silence. But listen carefully, because this is where the most unexpected part begins. Your soulmate is not only thinking about the future between you, they are thinking about what could happen if both of you continue allowing fear, pride, timing, or confusion to make decisions on your behalf. They may be realizing that waiting forever does not create clarity. It only creates more unanswered questions. And somewhere inside them, a powerful decision is forming. They do not want to watch something meaningful disappear simply because neither person had the courage to speak honestly. Perhaps this is why their next move may feel completely different from anything you have experienced before. It may not arrive dramatically. It could begin with something incredibly simple. A message, a question, an unexpected conversation, a small attempt to reconnect, or even an honest admission that finally breaks through years of emotional distance. And when it happens, the most important thing will not be the words themselves. It will be what those words reveal. Because beneath them may be a confession they have carried much longer than you realize. I never stopped caring. That sentence can change everything when it comes from someone who once seemed completely detached. Suddenly, the moments you interpreted as rejection may look more complicated. The distance may have been hesitation. The quietness may have been emotional confusion. The delay may have been someone trying to become certain before making a promise they could not take back. And now your soulmate may finally be reaching the point where uncertainty is no longer stronger than their feelings. But there is still one truth they have not told you, and that truth is connected to the exact moment when they realized they could actually lose their chance with you. That moment may have happened quietly, without you ever knowing. Perhaps they saw you changing. Perhaps they sensed that you were becoming more independent, more peaceful, less willing to wait for someone who could not make their intentions clear. And instead of feeling relieved, something inside them shifted. They realized that the version of you they had always assumed would remain available might not remain there forever. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally began choosing yourself. That realization can awaken something powerful in a soulmate connection. It forces a person to confront the difference between wanting someone and being willing to show up for them. Your soulmate may now be standing at that exact crossroads, looking back at every opportunity they delayed and every feeling they kept hidden. And what they are beginning to understand is astonishing. The greatest thing they could do for this connection is not hold you back, it is finally become honest enough to meet you where you are. So if you have been wondering why this connection still feels unfinished, keep listening, because the next revelation goes deeper. There is a specific emotional truth your soulmate may be preparing to reveal, and once that truth comes into the open, you may finally understand why they were never able to completely walk away from you. The story has not reached its most important moment yet. There is a reason your soulmate may have suddenly become more aware of what this connection means, and it has less to do with chasing you than you think. Something changed when they realized that your heart could no longer remain in the same place forever. They may have assumed there would always be another opportunity, another conversation, another moment to finally explain everything. But now they are beginning to understand that opportunities do not stay open simply because feelings remain. And that realization may be the very thing pushing them toward a decision they have postponed for far too long. Your soulmate may be remembering the smallest details about you, the way you reacted to certain words, the little things that made you laugh, the conversations that seemed ordinary at the time but became unforgettable later. Those memories are becoming evidence to them that this was never as insignificant as they tried to convince themselves. They may have walked away physically, but emotionally, they never completed that journey. And now something inside them is saying, you cannot keep pretending this means nothing. That is the part you were never supposed to see. Behind their calm exterior could be a person wrestling with the realization that they have been protecting themselves from the very connection they secretly wanted to understand. And then comes the moment that changes the entire direction of this story. Your soulmate may finally recognize that what they need to save is not you from some literal tragedy, but this connection from being buried beneath hesitation, assumptions, and unfinished words. They may realize that you have been interpreting their silence one way while they were experiencing it completely differently. Perhaps you thought they did not care because they did not speak. Perhaps they thought staying quiet was better than saying something they were not ready to explain. Two people can care deeply and still become separated by what neither one says. That is why the next step matters so much. If your soulmate reaches toward you, it may come with a different tone, less confusion, less pretending, less emotional distance. They may finally want to tell you what was happening behind the scenes of their silence. And the surprising part may be that their biggest regret is not losing you, it is allowing you to believe that you were never important to them. That realization can become impossible to ignore. Suddenly, every delayed conversation carries weight. Every almost confession feels unfinished. Every memory becomes a reminder that something meaningful was left unresolved. And your soulmate may now be asking themselves one question again and again: what if I had been honest sooner? Here is where your soulmate's hidden fear begins to surface, not fear of you, but fear of arriving too late emotionally. They may be wondering whether you still have space in your heart for the truth they have been carrying. They may wonder whether you would listen if they finally stopped hiding behind carefully chosen words. And perhaps that is why this connection has felt so strangely quiet before becoming emotionally loud inside your mind. Sometimes the loudest turning points begin in silence. A person thinks, remembers, compares the past with the present, and eventually reaches a point where pretending becomes harder than speaking. Your soulmate may be reaching that point now in this story. They may not have everything perfectly figured out, but they are beginning to understand one thing with unusual clarity: if they want something real with you, they cannot keep expecting time to do the work that honesty was supposed to do. They have to show you what they feel through consistency, respect, and genuine effort. And that is exactly why you should pay attention to what comes next, not because you need to wait endlessly for someone, but because the next chapter is about recognizing whether their actions finally match the feelings they once kept hidden. But there is one detail your soulmate may never have expected to discover about you. They thought you were waiting for them to return, yet what they may eventually realize is far more powerful: you were becoming someone who no longer needed to wait. You were growing beyond the version of yourself that needed constant reassurance. You were learning that a meaningful connection should bring clarity, not endless confusion. And when your soulmate recognizes that transformation, something inside them may shift completely. They may understand that if they want a place in your future, they cannot simply appear with old emotions and expect everything to return to the way it was. They have to meet the person you have become. That is the hidden turning point. The connection is no longer about whether you can get back what existed before. It is about whether something stronger, clearer, and more honest can be created now. And your soulmate may be closer to that realization than you ever imagined. Yet there is still one confession buried beneath everything they have shown, and when that confession finally rises to the surface, it could explain why they kept finding reasons to remember you even when they were trying desperately to move forward. Something is shifting beneath the surface, because your soulmate is beginning to understand a truth they once avoided: some connections do not disappear simply because two people stop speaking. They can become quieter, more distant, almost invisible, and yet one unexpected memory can bring everything back with extraordinary clarity. Your soulmate may have experienced exactly that. A random moment may have reminded them of you, and suddenly they were not remembering just your face or your voice, they were remembering how they felt when they believed the two of you still had a future to discover. That realization may have caught them completely off guard. They may have tried to explain it away, telling themselves it was only nostalgia, only an old memory, only a passing thought. But then another memory appeared. And another. Until they had to face the possibility that they had never truly finished processing what happened between you. This is where the story becomes deeper than a simple reunion. Your soulmate may be realizing that what they lost was not merely a person, it was a version of themselves that existed around you. You brought out emotions they did not know how to name, and perhaps that intensity made them retreat instead of moving closer. Now they may finally be mature enough to understand what those emotions were trying to tell them. They were not meaningless. They were unfinished. Then comes the realization your soulmate may have been avoiding for a very long time. They cannot rewrite the past, but they can change what they do with the truth now. They may remember moments when you needed clarity and they offered silence, moments when you needed reassurance and they offered distance, moments when a simple honest sentence could have prevented an entire chapter of confusion. And those memories may now carry a different weight. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" they may be asking, "What can I do differently now?" That question matters because real change is not proved by dramatic promises. It is proved by consistent behavior. If your soulmate truly wants to protect the possibility of something meaningful with you, they will have to stop relying on assumptions and start communicating with intention. They will have to stop expecting you to understand feelings they never expressed. They will have to recognize that your heart deserves clarity just as much as theirs does. And perhaps the most surprising part is that they may now understand your silence differently too. They may have once interpreted your distance as indifference, but now they could be seeing it as self-respect. You were not necessarily walking away because you stopped caring. You may simply have reached a point where you could no longer carry the entire emotional weight of an unfinished connection by yourself. Now imagine the moment when your soulmate finally decides that one honest conversation is worth more than 100 silent assumptions. They may approach you carefully, because they know they cannot simply erase everything that happened. They may begin with something small, perhaps a simple question or an ordinary conversation, but beneath those words could be an enormous emotional confession waiting for the right opening. They may want to tell you that they remembered you far more often than they admitted. They may want you to know that certain places still remind them of you, certain songs still pull them backward through time, and certain moments still make them wonder what could have happened if they had been braver. But there is something even more powerful than all of that. They may finally admit that losing the possibility of you taught them what having you meant. And that realization can change the way someone approaches love completely. Suddenly, the goal is no longer to impress you. It is to be understood by you. The goal is no longer to make you chase. It is to make their intentions clear enough that you never have to guess. And if that shift is genuine, you will recognize it not through dramatic words, but through the calm consistency that follows. Yet one final piece remains hidden, and this is the part your soulmate may struggle most to say out loud. They may be afraid that you have already emotionally moved beyond the chapter where they belong. They may wonder whether the door they once left open is still there, or whether you quietly closed it while they were busy trying to understand themselves. And that uncertainty may be forcing them to confront something they never expected. You cannot demand access to someone's heart simply because you finally understand your own. If they want another opportunity, they have to approach you with humility. They have to respect your pace. They have to show that their return is not another temporary emotional wave, but the beginning of something more intentional. That is why the next moment matters so much. Your soulmate may finally be preparing to reveal what they were truly trying to protect all along, not you from some literal tragedy, but the possibility that the two of you could someday meet again without the confusion that separated you before. And when that truth becomes visible, you may realize that the greatest twist in this entire story was never about your soulmate coming back. It was about them finally becoming honest enough to tell you why they never completely left. Something you never heard from your soulmate may finally be ready to come into the open, and it begins with a realization they could no longer ignore. They had spent too much time protecting their feelings instead of expressing them. They may have convinced themselves that silence was safer, distance was easier, and waiting would somehow make everything clearer. But time did something completely different. It gave them space to understand what your absence actually meant. They began noticing how often their thoughts returned to you, how certain memories remained unusually vivid, and how difficult it became to replace the emotional connection they once tried to minimize. And this is where their story takes another unexpected turn. Your soulmate may have discovered that the person they were trying to forget was actually the person who made them understand what they wanted from a genuine connection. That does not mean everything from the past was perfect. It means the experience taught them something they could not learn by simply moving forward. They learned that attraction is easy to recognize, but emotional safety, honesty, patience, and mutual effort are much harder to find. They may now be looking at you through completely different eyes, not because you suddenly became valuable, but because they finally became capable of recognizing the value that was already there. And now, there is something you need to understand about the word save in this story. Your soulmate does not need to rescue you from some literal catastrophe. The deeper meaning is emotional. They may be trying to save the connection from becoming nothing more than a memory. They may be realizing that another season of silence could create a distance that even strong feelings cannot easily cross. That realization could be what finally motivates them to communicate. Maybe they will not arrive with some dramatic declaration. Maybe they will simply say the one thing they should have said much earlier, should have been honest with you. Those words can carry more weight than 100 exaggerated promises when they are followed by genuine action. And if this person truly has something important to say, you will not need to force it out of them. You will not need to chase clues, decode every tiny signal, or put your life on pause waiting for an uncertain outcome. Their responsibility will be to make their intentions clear. Your responsibility will simply be to protect your own peace while you observe whether their actions deserve your trust. That is the difference between fantasy and a meaningful connection. Real love does not require you to abandon yourself just to keep another person close. Before you decide what this connection means, look at what your soulmate may finally be learning about timing. Sometimes two people meet before they understand themselves. One person may be ready while the other is still carrying old expectations, unresolved. And now we reach the moment your soulmate may have been avoiding from the very beginning. They may finally have to choose between remaining comfortable in silence and becoming vulnerable enough to tell you the truth. They know that once the truth is spoken, the connection cannot return to the same uncertain place. You will know what they feel. They will know what you feel. And both of you will have to decide what happens next based on reality rather than imagination. That can feel overwhelming, but it can also be incredibly freeing. Because perhaps the thing your soulmate has been trying to protect was never a perfect ending. Perhaps it was the chance for an honest beginning. And if they come forward, let their actions speak louder than the emotional intensity of the moment. Listen to the words, but watch the consistency. Feel the emotion, but keep your judgment. Remember the memories, but stay present. Your soulmate may be approaching a truth they have carried for longer than you realize, and the next part of this story will reveal the one sentence they may have rehearsed countless times but never found the courage to say directly to you. Stay with the story, because that confession is where everything begins to make sense.